What if AI could build your app? So this is the app we'll be creating. If you type in Washington, it will get the weather for Washington with a 5-day forecast for Washington, and also an AI summary with more information to do with the weather during that period. If I type in London, it will also get the weather, the temperature for London. As you can see, the 5-day forecast for this week. I type in a very hot country such as Africa. It shows a hot climate, hot temperatures for Africa with the description. If I type in a very cold country such as Russia, then you'll see it's in minus degrees, it's freezing. So this is the application we'll be creating using Swift and SwiftUI. In today's tutorial, we will implement the OpenAI Weather Summary Service. So the first thing we need to do is to create a new file. Select Swift file. Name the file OpenAI Weather Summary Service. And then we need to create our struct. First we import SwiftUI. Create our struct. And then we also need to use our protocol, which is Weather Summary Service. We also need to include the method that's within our protocol, so just click on Fix. And then we can start to implement the actual function for the protocol afterwards. So the first thing you need to do is to type in your API key. So this is the API key, whatever it is that you get from ChatGPT, so that you can use the actual service. Now we can implement or continue to type in the logic for our function, for our summarize function. So guard the API key. So if the API key is an empty, then we just continue with the rest of the function. But if it is, then we have to return a fallback. And this fallback method we'll be creating later on. So we just pass in JSON payload. And you can see the method doesn't exist at the moment. But in the event that everything went okay, we will hit this line, this point, and then we're able to call this URL, which is https API OpenAI.com version 1 chat completions, which is the completions endpoint for OpenAI. Var REQ for request. I'll just type in actual word request, makes it easier to understand. Request, URL, request, URL, and that's the URL that we want to be requested from OpenAI. Request dot HTTP method equals post request add value, and this is where we pass in our bearer token or bearer, and that would be our API key for here we need a comma after API key for authorization. We need another request dot add value application JSON, and then we have to specify the content type. In our case, we're using JSON, as you can see. So that will send the request body as JSON. On lines 20, we need to include the bang operator there. Really, we should be using safe unwrapping. The next thing we need to do is to create some instructions to allow ChatGPT to obey our request. So this is the actual prompt we'll be using. Instead of typing it out, I'll see if I can copy it from the clipboard. So as you can see, that's the prompt. And then we need to type the following: let user prompt equals original user request. Original prompts, which will be in JSON. The JSON payload. Don't know why it doesn't like this formatting. I'll just copy and paste it. Cannot find original prompt. Create a variable called original prompt. It should be in our function signature, but it's spelled incorrectly. So we have to go to our protocol and refactor that. Original, that's right now, original prompt. Let me just change it here as well. And here also, original prompt. The next thing we need to do is to create the following and the purpose of this is to send the actual payload to OpenAI. So within ChatGPT, we're using the following model. This is GPT 4.1 mini. And the temperature that we're using is 0. And the temperature is responsible for accuracy, not the temperature for the weather forecast, the temperature for how ChatGPT responds, such as the correctness of the output. Response, format, type, JSON object, messages, and then move to the following. Row, system, content, system prompt, and then we just repeat the same thing, but this time it will be for the user and not the system. User, content, user prompt. And then we need to type in the following: dot request dot http body. And the purpose of this is to encode the payload into a HTTP body equals try JSON serialization data with JSON object, and we just pass in the payload that we want to encode. Don't know why it's doing this on that line. Seems correct. Oh, there shouldn't be a dot there on line 57, full stop. It shouldn't be there. So now we have constructed the payload. Now we can attempt to post the payload to the API. So to do that, we need to type the following so it can be executed: data, and then the response equals try await URL session shared data for the request. And then we check to see if the server returned anything other than 200. So if it returned anything other than 200, that means some error has happened, and then we have to call our fallback method. Guard let HTTP equals response as HTTP URL response HTTP status code equals 200. And if it doesn't, we need to call the fallback method again, which we will be creating later on. Fallback summary from JSON payload. And the next thing we need to do is this. So in the event everything went okay, we have received the response from AI ChatGPT. Then we hit this line, and then we have to decode what we have received. Decodable struct message, decodable, get content, string, which is optional, get message, 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 line 71, I think that should be after this line, or on line 72 or 73, then it should be message, and then we also have to make the following for choice, or choices, get choices, for choice, and then I'm going to create another struct matching the JSON format that we're expecting to receive. So that'll be struct, summary, JSON, decodable, get headline, string, get bullets, string. And now we can decode the full chat response that was generated by ChatGPT. Let chat equals try, JSON decoder, decode, chat response dot self, and then we pass in the data that we want it to decode, which is data. And then the next thing we need to do is to extract the model contents string. We type in the following, content equals chat dot choices, first, message, content. If it's blank, we just put a space, 2 commas. And then we convert the content string back into JSON and decode the summary JSON struct. So to do that, I'll just copy it from the clipboard. I'll just paste it here. And take out or remove the unwanted closing brackets. We know that fallback summary doesn't exist, we'll be creating that later. Need some indentation. So what do we have here? So on line 94, which is this one here, what we do is we build a user-friendly summary with bullet points. And then what else do we do? If there's an error, we just throw a network error using .cancel. Or we throw a fallback summary if for some reason the API key as shown earlier was empty. In next week's tutorial, we will implement the actual fallback summary.